Hi, so in this video we are going to see a simple application of whatever we have learned till now. So what we are going to do, since we know now how to dynamically create elements and how to delete them, how to iterate over them, how to style them, so these things we know, right? So why not create a small sort of dynamic application, and one of the common examples of that is sort of a to-do list, right? So first of all, what is a to-do list? To-do list will be something like, let's say I have some list items which is like which are various tasks. Okay, so it's like task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, like these. A few tasks are there, and these are my to-do list. Okay, but we have to make this somewhat interactive, right? So what we are going to do is that rather than already hard coded something like this, we are going to generate it dynamically, right? And how to generate it dynamically? uh, the user is going to give us the input. So us as the user, we are going to give some input in the form of some HTML input field or something, and when we add that item, then that should be added to the list, right? And initially it's in the to-do list is empty, and as we are going to keep on adding, then the to-do list grows. Okay, so yeah, so this is the idea. Now first of all, before we start the implementation, let me tell you one thing, that all the things which we are going to do here right now, like manual traversal of the DOM, manual creation of elements, and inserting inside the DOM, so all those things which we are doing is actually not the way how modern web applications work. Means obviously every all the modern applications work internally like that, but as a developer you never do that directly. Okay, so you can understand that whatever we discussed till now, that is sort of very foundational, and even though we will not use that directly, there are good libraries on top of that which do the work a lot easier for us. But still we learned that because you should always understand that under the hood what is happening. So whenever your library is doing something, then actually internally everything is done using that only: query selector, get element by id, like set attribute, get attribute. Those are the core things which all the library does internally. But rather than we doing that explicitly, there are better apis over it in form of some libraries which make our task a lot easier. Okay, so for example, many years ago, we used to directly do whatever the DOM APIs I mentioned you directly, right? But after that, a popular library known as jQuery came into the existence, right? And you can see that yeah, so around 15 years ago it was released, and 2006, and it was quite a bit popular library. In fact, it is very much popular these days also, but these days these things is only used by people who are like who have some legacy application, or like they are not into the new technologies, right? But still, since it has had a lot of momentum earlier, so it was one of the popular. And there was a time like 5 6 7 years ago where this was the most popular used library throughout the web, right? This was the way to build web. But over the years, again Angular came, and then by the time Angular came, at the same time a new library called React came, which is these days pretty much the standard. Okay, and React, when you see, then this is what we are going to use after a few weeks. Okay, so this thing, these so but just my point is that these are the things which evolved, and ultimately we will be going to use React. But when we are building our to-do list, then we will see that it is quite easy to do. And in fact it is like not not the iterative way in which we are doing, like the React is sort of a declarative way where we don't have to iterate the DOM and go there. We just declaratively say what to do and then it does this. So we'll learn all about that. But the point is that still I'm trying to create a small app using the bare bones whatever we learned, so that you just get a feel of it and you will never use it directly ever. But sometimes it might be helpful, because sometimes you will never iterate you will never create elements generally, but sometimes add event listeners and all those things are like can be used in conjunction with React also. Okay, so yeah, so we'll see the same thing which we are doing right now, that will become somewhat more easier in React. But right now, whatever we have learned till now, let's get started with that. Okay, so the idea is that uh, let's say this initially this thing is empty, right? Nothing is there, and it has some container. So let's say id is equal to let's say to do list. Okay, and right now this is empty. What we are going to do, as we did earlier, we are going to target this element which is like the container for the list, unordered list, and then we are going to add li elements which are going to be our tasks for the to-do list, right? So the list is our document dot query selector or or get element by id, anything you can use. In this case, query selector. So this is our list now, right? Now now what we are trying to do is that, yeah, so first of all, let me hard code a value and then we'll create that value dynamically. Okay, so let's say, yeah, we have let's create a particular task. Okay, so that task can be like document dot create element, right? And then create element will be of what type? Li type, right? And then once I have the task, then I need to append it to the list, right? So list dot append child and task. Okay, but still here something is missing, which is like the data, the one item has been added, but like there is no text of that, right? So we need to add task dot, let's say, some inner text is equal to let's say task 1 or something like that. Okay, so this is our task 1 added. But and in the same manner, like if we do again one time, then task 2 will be added, but that is not what we want, right? We want to take this thing as a user input. Okay, so let's see that how to take the user input. Okay, so what we can do is that we can have a input field, right? And then we can say that let's say it is uh, this is the input task, and then at the end you are having a button, and that button is like add task or something like that, right? Now so this will be visible something like this. Okay, so basically what is our requirement, that we will type here something, right? And like let's say task 1, and then when we add, then that thing should be added here, task 2, and when we add, then that thing should be added here. Right now nothing will happen, obviously. So what we are going to do is that and let's have a simple thing, something like placeholder your new task or something like that, right? So yeah, so it's just that some this thing like placeholder thing will be coming, that is fine. Now what we are trying to do is that when we are clicking on this button, right, then we have to take the input from this field and handle that, right? Okay, so first of all on click of this button we have to do something, right? So on click we have to call some function, right? So let's say add task. This is the function. Okay, now in this function, and this function you can implement anywhere, like in this HTML only I'm going to implement it in here, so that is fine. So right now, for now, comment these things, and let's create a function. And this function, what you're going to do is that you are going to take so just for clarity, let's print this, that this thing is called or not. So when you're clicking this, you're seeing that add task is being called, so we are perfect right here. Now when we are clicking this thing, then what we want is that we want to take this input fields value, right? So let's give some id to it. So id is equal to yeah, so task task id, task input, task inp, let's say this is the task input field. Okay, now this task inp, whatever we have taken, and the convention is like not camel case, convention is like this, so that is fine. Anyways, you can use camel case also, that, but anyways, I'm using this thing. So once you have this id, then what you can do, you can again here get this that input field, that input element, using, again you can use document dot query selector, and then you can target that. So now we have the input element, right? And you can clearly see that when I print, then I'll get the input element. I'm having the input element, but I'm interested in what? I'm interested in its value. And if you remember that whatever we are writing here, let's say ASDF, anything we are writing here, that this thing comes in something called dot value of a input field. So any input field is there, any input, and we have already got the input field, right? Then if we print dot value, then we are going to see, we are going to see that whatever we write here, that thing is going to be taken as the dot value. Okay, so that is fine. Now what we want to do, we already have the setup. This is what we earlier did, right? What is just the difference? Just the difference is that instead of task 1, we have to get our input dot value, right? And this is the, so basically yeah, we are getting that, so you can think like this, that we have got the task reference, right? And then we have created we have then got the reference from the input field, right? And then we got the value and we set it in task inner text, and then we appended that to the original list reference, and that will add it to here. Okay, so task 1, right? Task 2. Okay, and one thing is happening, that when I'm clicking this thing should get erased, right? How to do that? As soon as I have captured that value, why not set it to empty string, and that will erase that, right? So if I have task 1, then you can see that now it is cleared, right? Task 2, it is cleared. So yeah, this thing is working fine, right? But one thing is there, that you see that when you write something, let's say task 3, and when you press enter, that is not working. When you click, then it is working, right? So what is the problem? The problem is that we are not handling it as a form. You understand? Like enter, if you press enter, then there is no way of HTML to know that enter means click this button. You understand? And a solution of that, we earlier saw that rather than having the whole thing as this is like separate somewhere input, this is like separate thing, you create a form, right? You create a form, and then inside form you move whatever your items are there. Now what happens, that when, and now there is no need of on click, because what will happen, that as soon as you press enter, then it is understood that uh, uh, so what is the thing, inside form, when button is there, then button, we know that by default we don't need to write, but by default type becomes submit, but you don't need to write, because even if you don't write, the type becomes submit. Okay, so for input field, we know that for input field by default it is text, and if you want to make input field submit type, then you have to write it submit, right? But in case of button, by default it is submit, and if you don't want it to have submit, then you make it type button. So that is the behavior, right? We have already learned that. So now yeah, so now button is there, so which means that if I am somewhere here and then I press enter, then this thing will like like submit thing of this button sort of thing will be sort of triggered, which will mean essentially that this form will be submitted, and I don't want to submit it somewhere else, right? And we discussed that if we don't want to submit at some endpoint, then we don't need to give this action and all, right? What we on submit, we have a method, right? And again, in that we will call that add task. In that we will call that add task. So you can see that this add task is called when on submit is enabled. However, there is still a problem. You see what? So let's see. Firstly, when you enter, or both will work, right? Enter will also work, add task will also work. But I'm just showing you that when you click, then you see that refresh is occurring, and this thing, something printed and then gone away. So for that, let's preserve log to see that what is actually happening. You see that when I click, then you see that every time it is like refreshing, page is refreshing, and this is like navigating to means it is redirecting to where, redirecting to the same page. So essentially what is happening, that this page is getting refreshed. Why it is refreshed? Because if you use on submit, then by default the default behavior, which is submitting the form, that is not prevented. In order to prevent that, we learned that we need to pass event here, right? And then that event, what you can do is that you can handle here, and you can say that event dot prevent default. So the default behavior, whatever, and the default behavior in this case is what? For this event, the default behavior is submitting the form, right? So I am saying that please don't do that, right? I will do my own handling, and when I will be done, I will do my own what API call or something. You don't need to do anything for me. So this is this is the thing for that. Okay. So now if you think, and if you clear that, and now you think that now if you click, then you see that refresh is not happening. Refresh is not happening, and again this empty thing is there because I have not written anything here, right? If I write something, then it will be added. Better to add that condition here, right? That if input value, let's say this thing, right? If this thing is there, if this thing is having some value, then only do all those things like adding and all these things. Otherwise, just don't do anything. Which means that if I INP is not defined, let me check INP. Yeah. So basically this condition will be from here, right? I have to take the reference, and once there is no value in that reference, then we will not run it. Okay. So let me clear this, and you see that when now I'm clicking, then nothing is happening, but when I am adding task 1, then it will be added. So if empty, nothing will happen. Again, there's no need of preserve log now, so let's remove it. Okay, so that is fine, that is fine. Yeah, so but you know one thing, we are trying to submit form, right? And the form itself knows that I have input fields, right? But then here we are like manually using query selector, using that id we are targeting, right? We know that there are better ways to do that, right? So so we'll see that first of all, one thing, this event name, right? This is a function, right? And any like parameter argument is passed from here. That thing you can give any name, right? So you can give simply event instead of event. You simply give e. That is also fine. That is also fine. But here event is compulsory. Here you cannot write e, right? Here event is compulsory. Why? Because if you see carefully, actually this thing is not some function as such. This is just a string. It's just syntax highlighted because of VS Code. VS Code is intelligent enough to understand that this is like related to some function call, and that's why it highlights it like some function like thing, right? But actually it is just a string. You can see that this from here to here there is quotes. It is just a simple plain string. So in simple plain string, if you here write anything, let's say xyz or pqr, how will JavaScript know that what are you trying to do? Or you simply write e, how do you know that you are trying to do? So it is simple string, and HTML understands it like that, that if you write event, then it understands that you are trying to pass the event, this submit event to to this function. So that's why this variable is important, right? But once the event has come in our real function, then this is like JavaScript, like this is JavaScript, so no hacks are needed, right? Here like normal, any variable you want, whatever the first argument is called, past event, that will be coming in the this argument e, so that will be fine, right? So yeah, this is working, right? So milk, and I'm pressing enter rather than adding add task, right? And then that is also working fine. So let's say butter, enter, and then it is being added, right? So yeah, looks like this is working fine. Let's try that thing which I was discussing, is that if we already know that what is the form and this all things. See, earlier this thing was completely independent of this thing. So somehow we need to track. We need to track that which input we are talking about. But right now, if we don't have also some ID or something, we earlier saw that there are ways to do that, right? How can we know that? So there can be 5 input elements and then a submit button, right? And then all the values are submitted to this form. So basically all that information should be inside this event, whatever input fields are there, right? So how to capture that without again doing a query selector and task input and having an ID there and getting that input? Is there some other way, right? So yeah, so we earlier saw, so rather than this, we earlier saw, for time being, let's comment this for now, okay? So we earlier saw that e dot target is there, right? E dot target, and let's see what is e dot target. You see that e dot target gives me the form, okay? And we also saw that on that form, if we do elements, then it will give us all the HTML form controls which are there, and we saw that in input button everything, which means that in order whatever is available, so in input thing, button thing, whatever the input fields are available, whatever the input fields, HTML form control fields are available, they will be available in this elements, right? And now it is very much simple. Like we know that the first one is our input field, right? So essentially whatever we were trying to do from here, now we can simply do like here, like this. So we don't need a particular ID to track that, right? And now, since now I have the reference, and you can print this, to see. You can see that you have got that input field, right? So now it's like same thing, like if you would have done this, then you would have got the same reference. And now I have removed this ID, so I will not get. But anyways, when that alert ID was here, then we were getting that, right? Now this thing is not needed. this thing is not needed, but you can simply get this reference, right, and then everything will be same, then everything will be same, right. We are simply uh, we are simply seeing that this inputs what is the value, right, and if some value is there, then we are going ahead and creating a and this thing task, right, task, yeah, so this task thing is can completely move inside this, right, because if input is there and its value is there, then we are going to create a task, create a task li item, and then we'll set its inner text to whatever value is there, and we know that some value is there now, and we'll capture that, and after that we'll append that, right. So ideally this should work, right. So yeah, let's see, presenter, yeah. So so this is sort of working, okay. So this is what how we can implement a to-do list, right. Now a small variations can be there, that okay, okay, some of the items can be already populated from, let's say some already given data, understand. So let's say some array, let's say items is given, right, and in that you have a bunch of tasks already there, right. And we have already seen that sort of JSON fake API, we saw that there also we have some data, right. So the idea is what, the idea is that see, the problem is happening that every time we are refreshing, everything is gone, right. So what is the solution? The solution is that when we are adding task, then it should not only get added here, internally there should be a call, backend, like API call, and it should like sort of a, like fetch request only, right. But that fetch request will be not for getting the data, that will be for sending the data, posting the data, no, not getting the data, to the server. And whatever action item, task item, to do list we are trying to create, so let's say buy milk, right, and then this thing is added to the database, and when next time we refresh, then we get the whatever the latest to do list is there, and then it gets pre-populated, right. So right now we have a way to create this thing, we have a way to create this item, but we don't have a way to send that, because we have not implemented, we have not learned how to create APIs, right. So for that I'm saying that simple fake API, but this will be read only, right. We cannot create we cannot write our thing to this thing, this is just read only, right. So I'll just give you a mix of both, but later we will see that how to directly create our own APIs also, right. But for now whatever something like this is there, then I'm saying that something like that data, already data could be there, right. So for example, let's say title is there, and then you have some task one, right, and then you have a flag, let's say whether this task is to do list is there, right. So whether this task is completed or not, right, and you can have this task 2 and something, right. And how can you create a pre-filled value of these things, uh, so what are we trying to do? We are saying that, yeah, this thing is when we submit, then this thing is called, right. Now what we can do is that we can take this part, right, and we can create a new function, we can take this part and create a new function. So for example, here I can say that add task, or add task, this thing is already there, right. So let's say handle task or something like that, handle insertion or something like that, right. Or insert task is the better, append task is the real thing, but let's say insert task is the function name, right. Now we create our own function. Why we are doing this, let me show you. insert task function is there. See, we are doing this because we are trying to reuse this function. One time we are trying to reuse this here, right? And second time we are trying to reuse this for rendering these items, right? Which means that let's say first time you refreshed, then already some items are there, which are these things, right? And then after that you can start adding new items also. So let's say that is the use case, right? But then why to write the code two times, right? Why to write the code two times? So what we can do is that we can reuse the same code. So firstly let's reuse this, recheck the same code here only. So firstly, what are the things? Task is new variable created. This input dot this input variable is not available, right? So you understand, right? Now the error will come, some error will come because that inp is not defined, right? Now this inp we have to pass from here, understand? So now that inp variable I have passed, and now inp dot value, and I can't pass simply inp dot value because inp dot value I have to reset also, right? And that's why it's better to pass inp only. Now now it is almost done, right? List is a global variable here, so there is no need of passing that anywhere, right? So yeah, this should work, right? Means I'm saying that whatever earlier thing we were doing, that thing should work. So that thing is working right now. Now since we have got our older implementation working with the new refactored code, right? Now let's reuse this code to insert this thing, to insert these items, okay? And again, what do we need? We just need the input element, and that's it, right? So what we will do, that for of item, will iterate through the items, right? And for each item, what we are trying to, and we know that for each item, if I iterate, then this item dot title, this is we are interested in, right? This is what we are going to insert, right? So task 1, task 2. But what we want is that we want to get the input reference also, because we don't know, right? We don't know that what is the input reference. So for that, what we can do is that we can get a like inp, that again, so this is a separate scope. Here we are using inp. Here also we can use the same variable because this is a separate scope, right? They are not conflicting, okay? So now inp is what, now from here, from form, without id, there was a way to get it, right? Because the event has all the data. Now from outside there is no data, so I again need to add something, right? So let's say what same thing, let's say task inp. Now using this task inp, I can get access to that thing, right? So query selector, and then using hash this thing, I will get the reference. Now I have the reference, I have the title also, right? So okay, so I believe that okay, sorry. So the point is that this my mistake, this input field is not needed at all, right? Why? Because we are not dealing with input. In fact, that input which we were getting here, whatever we are entering, right? That is the thing which we have to enter. But that data which we need to enter, that is already there, in the item.title, right? So why to bother, in fact I was doing wrong. So we can directly take this thing, right? We can directly take this thing, and then we can pass here, right? But here we saw that firstly write the duplicate code. We'll see that if we can optimize it. So the point is this thing, that we created a task, we created an input item, and then instead of input dot value, we are using item dot title, okay? So that is fine, right? That is fine. Now you see that task 1, task 2, what was here, that is already there, right? And now now you can yeah, so you can reuse this in a sense that yeah, in a sense that see, once this task is done, then you can do something like this here, right? Something like this, and instead of this, now you pass simply input dot value, which means that the actual task you are passing, task data, whatever actual task data you are passing, right? And then you can directly assign this task data here, right? And then now we can reuse this function. Now we can reuse this function here, right? So rather than this, we are just going to do insert task and then whatever the item title is there. So yeah, so these sort of things you can do on your own. It's just that you will do a couple of times, then you will get a hang of it. But the point is that you see that now it is working same, and then on top of that you can add new tasks, right? So let's say buy milk and butter. So those things you can okay. So what is the setup right now? The setup is that all these items are already available, and these items are you are newly adding. And ideally the situation should be that as you are adding these items which are coming from database, they should be also updated, but we will do that later sometime, okay, when we learn about building APIs and all. But yeah, so that should be it. One final thing is that what do you think? What do you think? We are hard coding this. We are hard coding this, right? This thing, items. Can we get items? Can we get items directly? So let's comment everything. Let's comment everything, right? And right now, what I'm saying is that you are hard coding these items, right? Can we get this items or whatever directly from API? So this fake API, this is also having a to-do list, sort of a 20 items to-do list, right? So can we get this, and we can use this, right? Because we know how to use that using fetch API, right? And async await and all those things we know, right? So what we do that let's write a fetch. And we will have to do an IIFE because it will have to be an async function, and top level await, we don't want to rely on that, right? So we are going to do const resp is equal to fetch this thing, right? And again this thing has to be await, right? And then const data is equal to resp.json, then you will get the data, right? And what is that data? That data is only items, actually, sort of, in our case, right? Let's print that here. Now this is not needed because the data should come from the server. Yeah, it is pending. So I think resp.json, this thing I did not put await. Yeah, so the point is that now you are seeing that 20 items you have got it, right? And whatever earlier we wanted what? Two things, right? Title of the task and status of the task, completed, right, or not. So those things are available in each of them, right? So the title is there and completed is there. So I believe this should work, right? This should work. It's just that the whole code now has to be inside this function, right? Because like everything is inside this IIFE, right? Okay, so yeah, this should work, right? If I refresh, you can see that all the 20 to-do list has come from here, right? So just you already know this, not a big deal. not a big deal. You already know this, how to fetch APIs and get the data, and then like and any data which you are using locally, in the same manner you can get data from some remote server, and then you can do the exactly similar thing. So you see that in these two lines, after these two lines, everything is same. So here the items was hard coded. Here, after in these two lines, we have got the data from the server. Nothing else has changed. Okay, literally. And you can optimize it more like completed false, and then you see that from the server what data is coming in that. Some cases completed false, some cases completed true is there. Then you can add some small bit of logic here and there, and see that yeah, when I'm inserting a particular item inside something, then I can check that, yeah, if so here I'm saying that this input dot title I'm passing this, right? If you are passing completed also, then you will get completed here, right? Yeah, this here you can do something like item dot completed, right? Now if you get completed, then now in this insert task you can get two things, right? You can get two things. You can get completed also, right? And if you are getting completed, again, just one thing I forgot, this thing should be kept outside only. Why? Because for this IAFE, the only purpose is this insert task, right? Okay, so this insert task is purpose, then this insert task is needed here, so this insert task is also needed outside. But if this insert task is needed outside, then yeah, it is, this will also work. So this will also work. Yeah, this will also work. So yeah, see, this insert task is used here, but that can be defined outside, right? And if that insert task is nowhere else used, then I could have defined this insert task inside this also. But I am seeing that this is used in this add task, which is used here, right, in on submit, and that's why the only option is to move that outside. Anyways, so the point is that item completed, if I completed, I have passed, then this completed, you can use some way that if this completed is thing is equal to true or something, then I can change something in the task. So for example, if completed is equal to true, let's say this thing will be a string, right? This thing is a string or what, or boolean. Let me check. Okay, so this thing is a boolean, right? So if this thing is equal to true, then task dot we know, right? We know style dot color is equal to, let's say, lime green, right? And we can see that all the things which are completed, they will be marked as green. So it's just that and on top of that, whatever my new task, whatever you keep on adding, that is also kept on adding here, right? So that is also working after refactoring all these things. So yeah, so this is pretty much it. This might be a long video, but actually you can just fast forward, you could have fast forward looked at, because there is nothing new in this. All these things you already know. It's just that I just showed a small sort of application, because see, from a long time we are studying HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but how can we how are those things fitting together to our view, so that we can see that something on the HTML side, some sort of a dynamic thing is coming, which is looking like some application or sort of thing, right? So again, we will build on these small setups, and we will make this more complicated slightly as we go ahead. But that should be okay for now. And in your free time, please try to just do a bit of research, and a bit of like practice on your own. Try to like tweak things here and there, and then, like, for example, let's say I want a button here, that if I if anything is completed, then there is a button here, or left side, or anywhere, like button is there, and if you click on that button, then that item is removed from the list, right? And that you can do, right? Because we know everything that how to remove items, right? So when you click, then then on the click of that you should know that where you have clicked, which row you have clicked. If which row you have clicked, then you could have added an attribute like index or id something, right? From that you will track that which element is there, and once you know which element is there, you simply call dot remove on the button click on click handler, and then that will be removed, right? So all these small things here and there you keep on trying, right? Because the APIs and all, like we have discussed, but each and every implementation, it's like a thing of practice, right? So slowly and slowly, as you build small things, then you will get a hang of it, and then you will start feeling confident in building some slightly more complicated things. Okay. So, anyways, that's a lot. So that will be all for this video. Thanks a lot. See you in the next one.